Booting up the music. What will we play today? Booting up the music. Alright, this is actually taking a while. There we go. Good morning, good morning. Got me. Oh, there we go. That's a little better. Bring down our music. This is the first time I've ever appeared on this show in a t-shirt, which is pretty interesting. I would say it's interesting. So that's cool. I have just fixed the music real quickly. I love that instrumental, the one we started with the saxophone solo. Well, good morning to anybody that is watching now, might be watching later, might be watching anytime. This is Joseph at the Poetry Studio. So this morning, if you saw on Instagram, potentially not, in my story, I posted a picture of what the New Year's poem currently looks like. And it looks like this. A mess. Honestly, a mess. But in a good way. I am going to be, and I've said this before, habits are habits. You win some, you lose some, you pull, you push. I'm going to attempt to be a little more intentional with my edits before the stream. Whether I do the stream at 10 a.m., 6 a.m., whatever. It's good to have the hat back. Today I'm wearing a t-shirt. This was actually given to me by my father-in-law. Look at that. It says Walking Wall Poet on the typewriter. So that's pretty exciting. And it's good to be here. Good to be ready to write. And so that's going to be today's project is mainly going to be trying to figure out my chicken scratch and get myself closer to a draft that I like. The metaphors have become more concise in these edits. Yesterday when I wrote this poem, this particular copy, the second stanza had 3 different images together, and it was just too busy. So now the whole poem has 2 images, which is the nursery rhyme of Humpty Dumpty falling off his wall, and the idea of the scribes of history writing. What does that sound like? And then kind of New Year's as an overarching image. So it's now going to be way. I like it. I like where it's kind of gone in the edits, but we're going to start out our stream with what we did a few days ago. Kind of been doing this a little bit on a regular basis, but I like the idea of, and I'm going to switch to our screen cam. There we go. Forever redundancies. And to delete this. Yeah, let's remove EOS from there. Let me just make sure that my typewriter camera was not affected. There we go. Okay. But we've been doing reading of random poems from Emily Dickinson, which has been kind of fun. So this is a random Emily Dickinson poem generator. She is a very vivid writer, sometimes surprisingly so. Let's see what this generator brings up. A short poem about the woodpecker. I love that there's this generator for random Emily Dickinson poems. For now, this is what I'm doing for poetry readings to start the stream. Just makes it easier to be able to not have to choose. Over time, if there's enough people donating, then I'll be able to curate a more organized stream. But it's just fun to be able to kind of go into the random chaos of it all and to read. So I'm going to try to zoom in so you can get a better view of this poem. Whoa, I'm going to go too much. There you go. This is poem 18, entitled The Woodpecker. His bill an auger is, his head a cap and frill. He laboureth at every tree, a worm his utmost goal. This is a short poem about the woodpecker by Emily Dickinson. All right, let's go back to Streamlabs. Get ourselves back onto the main camera, and we will get started with writing. So partially what happened this morning is I had a revelation. And I have to be very mindful of the fact that 2020 was a rough year for a lot of people, and that's an understatement. But I had a revelation this morning about how to say that this was the greatest year can have two implications. One implication being that it is the greatest year in terms of that we still are at the peak of civilization, that there's a lot of positivity that can still go around, and there's a lot that we haven't been able to see. The other thing, though, with this is that it is a year which makes people great. And having that be kind of a bit of a vibe of the poem. But the idea is that it emboldens people, which it is no small synchronicity that the song that's currently playing right now is the instrumental to Be Great, composed by Akira the Don. All the instrumentals are Akira the Don here on the show. So I think that there's something fitting in that. Telemonian Dan is here. Good morning, Telemonian Dan. It is good to see you. Yeah, I'm streaming at a new time around 10 o'clock just because I'm on vacation. I'm in Long Island right now. And so my schedule is all kooky and I'm staying at people's houses. So it's very hard for me to do the stream at 7. But I'm here now. And I've decided to entitle a poem about 2020 with the title The Greatest Year. And I haven't been happy with the poem so far, but hopefully in this 4th round of edits, we get something that I like. I hope that your holidays and Christmas were good. Telemonian Dan. The magic marker not working? Whoa, how did I mess that up? Scribes of memory. Is that a reference to something else, or is that just kind of a riff off of what I'm doing here? Either way, it's cool. Scribes of memory. I didn't even think of that. Memory is not very prescient in this poem, albeit we will remember this year. It's a very present tense poem. I've once again deviated from my original edits, but only for the great alliteration of the quills, swills, still. Let's try to endless scratch the pen, audible over the silence of shook. All I know is I have to have this done by tomorrow because this is what's going up on Instagram. Tomoni and Dam asks, what kind of themes are you trying to evoke? I think that the themes that I'm trying to evoke are perseverance, but perseverance is a little too positive of a word. It's more what ended up happening is there was sort of, for me, there was a sort of self-reliance that kind of came out of this, and praising the self-reliance of people, and praising the self-reliance of the year. Albeit that is not something that I think everybody would agree with. It's just kind of where the poem has been evolving. I don't know, really. It's tough because part of me is still not happy with it, but and this is kind of the start of it. Obviously, it's a long 3 stanza poem. Deleting the spam. Yeah, I know it seems like I feel a little lost about it. And I might have to tune down some of that first stanza, but I guess the biggest theme is some sort of self-reliance, but something that is not necessarily get out of here, Gatoxy. I can't even get that name right. Sure. One of the most recent pieces of advice I've learned is that when someone offers constructive suggestion or even criticism, is that it could be something that could lead you down a better path, and so you should look at it like it's free money. Cha-ching! Go ahead. Drop it in the chat. And now we're kind of off the rails on my edit because this part of the poem right here, I did not have anything. And Tony and Dan is preparing some suggestions as I continue to plow through my original edits of the poems. But I know that I need something here, but this is completely being created. That is a fantastic piece of advice. I'm writing it down on here. Intellect, emotion. So there is a connecting there is a connecting line in the third stanza which hasn't appeared yet. But the very obvious concern that Tony and Dan is bringing up is that when someone starts reading this poem, they're going to wonder why they moved from point A to point B. And so somebody will drop the poem at that point. Someone will stop reading. They'll say, oh, this doesn't make sense. And they'll stop and walk away. And the idea of any good writer is to continue enticing the reader to keep reading by not breaking a suspense of disbelief. So the fact is lines like over here, my own veins, my calligraphic confusion, those are opportunities for me to build a better bridge, possibly even to bring the two stanzas together so that they flow seamlessly, and possibly taking out that break. These are some ideas that his comment, which says, yeah, the third stanza connecting the two while preserving the contrast is a cool idea, but you are right that you need to get to that third stanza. To be able to get to that third stanza, you have to go through the first two stanzas, and you don't want to jar someone out of the reading. The greatest thing about this moment is how Telmoni and Dan saw the need of the poem, drew it out with his comment. With the first stanza being very abstract, talking of scribes of history, veins of ink, which evokes to me a very intellectual feel, while the second stanza feels much more like an emotional stanza, evoking emotion, and being able to bridge the two. So, and it's actually really cool because that kind of helps explain something about this poem. There's this intellectual pursuit that happens here, first stanza, and then there's an emotional feeling that happens in the second stanza. So we had like things where it was portions of the pandemic where people were trying to intellectualize it, the science of it, counting cases, things like that. But also there is the emotion of it that people were dealing with together. Opportunities everywhere for all that. But now we've reached in the poem I wouldn't say confusing spot, but a spot where I'm not sure where to turn next. And I don't want to use the image of the canyon, so I'm going to actually cross this thing out. I only had up to together again. One way to possibly try to resolve it just a little bit is to add something at the end of this stanza, and then fix the beginning of the second stanza later on. And what is a fragmented river but rapids? Oh, we have ink issues. Ink issues. Time to spin on the ink. Third stanza, bridge. And I don't know if I can do another disjointed. So like I start the next line by saying, I am counting down through a television. So it brings back to the present, the real of the actual event of New Year's. I don't know if that's gonna jolt people again. Let me write it and see how it works. Ooh, that's an idea. Literal bridge. I'm gonna write that here, since your comment just came through. As an idea, a literal bridge over the rapids. So I'll spoil it. The image that was going to tie the two together was kintsugi. Kintsugi is, I'm pronouncing it right, is it? Dang it. Filling cracks with gold. Something. It's kintsugi. It's kintsugi. So I am obsessed with kintsugi as an image. And I'll actually hop over on the screen to the explanation of it. I've been obsessed with this image for probably years, but especially in 2020. And I'm not the only one. People love this thing. It's a very vivid metaphor piece when it comes to writing, creating things. The idea of highlighting the cracks in a piece of broken pottery with powdered gold in order to show that it was broken, but now it is more beautiful because of the random chaotic gold that now sprinkles through the piece. So the bridging metaphor was going to be kintsugi, with the rivers of gold mending the pieces that are broken. Kind of a blend of the two, the idea of the veins of ink and river, the curvature of things. The letters themselves are very chaotic little forms. Look at my scribbling. But and that I only came up with this morning. But there's a lot of remnants of the old poem, I would say, that the poem started out as, that are still trying to like bring themselves in there, and I have to keep like pushing them away, which is why the television metaphor is just like, it's not a metaphor, it's just a thing. I'll tell you, I don't know what it is, but this has been a very hard poem to write. And yeah, it makes total sense now, and I appreciate that. But the problem is it has to make total sense from the start. Like, it has to be something where this bridge that you pointed out here, the bridge at the top, doesn't seem too disjointed. So I really do appreciate your insight on that. First reactions are sometimes the best reactions. Tony and Dan, do it. Write your own poem. Oh, I'd be really excited to see what that comes up from that. I'm so glad that this stream inspired you to write something. I've never been so insecure about what I've been writing. Now the ending. The song's been very, very stubborn about its ending. Its ending was the theme for a while, bringing the tomorrow into today, but it might be really falling off the rails on that. It ends, but it doesn't. I'm not really sure. Alrighty. And let's turn on the music. This is The Greatest Year. I heard the scribes of history, the endless scratch of the pen audible over the silence of shutdowns and still hearts. But the quill's swill still writes, my own veins of ink flowing in calligraphic confusion, seeking the endless river around a world-sized boulder and life-sized martyrs. Every day before, I lusted for comfort, security, peace. But the world burst forth, opened a maw of anxiety within me, and knocked me from my nursery rhyme porch. And all the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put themselves together again. Laying strewn, the princes and paupers, the saints and sinners, as the rapids threatened to overflow to wash us away. I am counting down through a television, reaching into the flowing future and pulling unwritten memories to the present. Children not yet born, planets not yet discovered, smiles not yet shared, unmasked, unleashed into the pregnant world. New life learning to speak, to write, to live because possibility beget necessity. And I saw what the scribes were writing, ink with gold flowing in between the cracks of the soul, binding us. We were meant to be great, innovate, celebrate, create the 2020 we could, and finding the time-traveling pen made our tomorrow into today. So I'm just making some notes after reading. Yeah, I gotta fix some parts here and there, but I mean, I don't think I'm going to be doing some massive surgery on this one at this point. the ending has some issues, but when it's only the ending, that really helps. I'm going the total opposite direction as you see when I'm finished, says Telmoni and Dan. And that is the coolest thing about poetry. Is yeah, that it just we go different directions. Well, I'll definitely be keeping the lights on here until you finish. But I think that for this, the poem has kind of matured into this sense. The ending, everything from possibility beget necessity, is still not where I want it to be. The lines about the scribe's writing with the inks with gold filling in between the cracks, that line is definitely good. Keep. But the third stanza is probably going to get a good rework. But I like, and I got to just do that bridge between the stanza 1 and stanza 2. But generally, the images and the themes that I'm finding here are a little crowded, but I like them. That they kind of, that there's the writings of history. I guess if there were the 3 biggest things about 2020 for me were the sense of history happening live at the same time, which is why the scribes of history were so important. The second big thing was the unseating of authority figures. The idea that nobody knew what was going on suddenly made everybody very equal in a way. That we saw people that we trusted in all fields of the world falter and stumble. And while that might be something that might not be, like, people might be like, oh, that's terrible, it actually is a wonderful thing because we're all human and it helps us all embrace our own humanity. But the third thing was the ability to rise and become a better person, become better as you were. And so these 3 themes do kind of intertwine with myself. It's a very personal poem. This may actually not be a good poem to share, but I might share it. I don't know. So yeah, I'm excited to see what you're going to be writing and reading, Telmoni and Dan. Let me, in the meantime, take your time with it, because I have a project, an endless project, and it's doing copies of haikus that I'm just working on, which we were working on before. And I never ended up writing the haiku about the flower girl and the ring bearer. I don't think I'm going to need it to get to my 75 haiku mark. I may write it eventually. Because the camera died, if you remember. Hopefully the camera won't die this time. We have time still. Camera died after an hour. And what's cool is, as my poem has rubbed off on you, your poem is going to reciprocally rub off on me. So you might write something and I might go, oh, wow, that's a perspective I didn't even think about. Oh, that's not the letter B. B, that's the letter B. Wait, that's not the letter B either. How weird. That's the letter B. Oh, wow, that's what happened. So it doesn't like the fact that I put the margin so far back. Let's bring back some music. Ooh, that's too loud, too loud. Okay. Our instrumentals have returned. So the funny thing is I may run out of index cards while on this trip to be able to finish all these haikus. The interplay between things I can do at home and things I can do far away is really interesting, especially when you're a typewriting poet. Dwelling more on the poem I was working on before, I'm beginning to think it could be more of a personal poem, and I need to write something that's a little more universal. I'm not necessarily married to that idea yet, but I don't know.
The awareness of separation from something or someone you love, who you've left behind, or who's been taken away, or which you simply outgrown. It's the loss of home. The origin of the word comes from two parts. Here, which means long, and knife, which is a very old word for field. That sense of something far away, something that's unreachable. I try to fight against the idea of here life. I much prefer my here life to be looking forward looking, wanting around the corner for things to be better. I don't want to feel a kind of yearning or longing, but I don't. Our culture is pervaded by nostalgia for things that probably never have existed. Gosh.
Sorry, I got caught up on an email. I will be ending the stream in about 5 minutes. Telemonian Dan says, I've gotten somewhere on my poem, but I'm afraid I hit a wall. Well, then just make sure that, put a Band-Aid or something on it. No, I'll send it to you on Facebook Messenger. Well, I'd be glad to, wrong thing. Be glad to help with that and be able to talk about it. And hey, my poem is literally all walls at this point. I mean, it's starting to kind of break through, but I definitely thought it would be simpler, quicker. A lot of my other poems have been simpler and quicker, but this one, for some reason, wanted to be more complicated. 2020 is a complicated year, Like, all the things that happened, obviously. So, I don't find it surprising in the least. At the same time, the most important thing is that the poem expresses how you're feeling and truly articulates that as truth art. Art is truth. Anyway, let me finish 2 more haikus, and then I'm gonna quit the stream. I'm guessing that means you wouldn't want me to read it, right? Because I'd be glad to read it out on the stream, but I don't want to read it out on the stream if you don't want me to do that. Oh, I love this. I'm reading it now. With all our conveniences stripped away, we find out who we truly are. Oh. Yeah, some of the vocabulary in here is awesome. Oh. There we go. So you do want to encourage a read. All right. So I'm going to turn down the music. I'm going to finish this one haiku. Here comes the rhyme. Well, this one's actually become a mess, so typos everywhere. Okay, so we have a partial poem from Telemonian Dan about 2020. I'm guessing it would be the theme. The gods of our time laughed at our hope, perched on our lofty ideals, certain only brightness lay ahead, that confidence born of delusion. But a twist of the clock, like a key in the lock, washes away the joys of modernity, back to survival. We've been here before. Storms rage, spreading plague, death at the door. Yet time flowing backwards, onwards, regressing to ages past, brings us back to the essentials. Family, friends, food, baking bread, breaking bread, the lives we led. With all of our conveniences stripped away, we find who we truly are, remembering the essence of life whose tastes were overshadowed by the fribberies of whimsical modernity. So, believe it or not, I do not know the word fribberies, but I love that's a very together poem, not mine, which is like, I want to put this theme and that theme and that theme. I love the focus on the simplicity. And I think a poem that's going to focus onto the simplicity of bare living, which we've been forced into in a way, has to be a poem that is simple in itself. It has to be something that is not, I wouldn't say simple as in simplistic, but simple as in very together on the theme. It's getting back to the basics. A structured rhyming poem this was. When you see it on the page, it's a lot more structured rhyming. That's also another inlaid sign of how it's going to the traditional. That is such a unique taste. I wouldn't say opposite of mine. I think my poetry generally just gives woo, kind of goes a little crazy, very modern free verse. But I think that the sense of simplicity and what in the great spirit of the poets, the fribberies of whimsical modernity. I think that you need to say that word all the time now. And I'm going to start saying it too, if you don't mind, because that word that you just invented is fantastic. It's like the fribberies of whimsical modernity. It's like It sounds like a combination of frivolity. Oh, he's been, yeah, he you use it as an alien term for something frivolous. But the interesting thing about fribberies, so he stole it from Harry Turtledove. The interesting thing about the word fribberies is that it sounds like quibbles, frivolities, frivolous. It sounds like worries a little bit too. So it's kind of like it's more than just frivolous. It's like a frivolity that's attached to the messiness of life. It's not just frivolity, because frivolity could be like a circus. A circus is frivolous, like very unnecessary. It sounds like a word from the Jabberwocky. Yes, indeed. And we have read the Jabberwocky on this stream before. I love Jabberwocky. Jabberwocky is a fantastic poem. Well, I'm going to call it here because there is a day to get after. And this camera is about to die, I'm sure. The battery, not the camera itself. Telmonian Dan is here bringing in invented words into his own poems. And oh, this is just really wonderful. So, hey, and that's part of what's cool about this stream is sometimes the stream's a crowd. And a lot of times it's been one-on-ones with people that I know, just sharing and celebrating poetry. And, hey, it's a little public instead of just kind of a sit-down coffee chat Zoom conversation. But I think it's cool because it means that other people can come and join in. It's like a table at a coffee bar where if we were discussing poetry. And that's the point of the studio. It's a studio, and the idea behind a studio is that people can kind of create their own things too. Great chatting with you. Thanks for the stream and have a great day. Thank you very much, Telmoni and Dan, for being here. This is the Walking Ball Poets Poetry Studio. We'll see you tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Akira. It's for the heroes.